So today we're still thinking about misquoting God and the season of Thanksgiving that we celebrated this week, the holiday itself. And I thought of a verse that may seem a little bit detached from that topic, but I'm going to connect the dots for you. It's Philippians 4:13. How many of you know that verse without me even reading it? It's a pretty famous one. It's one of the most famous. I can do all things through him who gives me strength, or through Christ who strengthens me, depending on your translation. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Where do you hear that verse? Why is that one you know? Yeah, sports, right? You can't help but hear it in sports. You see it on jerseys. You see it sharpied onto helmets. You hear it in locker rooms before a game. I've often wondered what God is to do when both teams are saying that verse in their locker rooms before the game. So one of these teams is about to be disappointed. Anytime two teams read Philippians 4:13 in the locker room, it's always a tie. No, that's of course not. I've heard it when people are trying to ace a test. They have some difficult exam, and they're studying and struggling, and they say, I can do this. Christ will give me strength. I can do this. Trying to get through nursing school or pass some kind of boards or just get through geometry class when you're 15 or 16. People will quote this verse. I've heard adults use this verse when they're trying to get a job promotion or seeking a new career path, and they'll talk to their family and their friends and their coworkers, and they'll say, I know I can get to where I'm supposed to be. I can do anything through Christ who strengthens me. When we have something we need to attain, when there's something we want, something more that we want to grab onto, we can use this verse. I know God will help me get the thing I need. But what if someone else applied for the same job and offered up the same prayer? What if the other team is quoting the same verse in their locker room? What if that's not even what that verse means? And you might have predicted that since the whole series is misquoting God. Obviously, I'm going to tell you I don't think that's what it means. That's the misunderstanding. The Apostle Paul didn't give this verse to the church at Philippi so they could have the key to more. This is your access point to more. If you lean on Christ, you'll always have more. You'll get what you want. That's obviously not what Paul meant. Instead, this is the key or the secret to contentment. This is what you quote in the locker room so you're prepared to win or lose. When you go into the job interview knowing you may not get the job or you may get the job, and it won't matter either way because you can do anything through Christ who strengthens you. The problem is we have misunderstood God. The reason we misquote God so often is because we don't understand God rightly. I thought of 3 analogies. I've probably used all of them from the pulpit before, but they're good ones. Magic genie in a lamp or a bottle. That's a common one. I think we pray and we worship and we sort of rub the lamp and then we assume God will come out and grant the wish. Or one that I love that I've heard before is a cosmic vending machine. And we put in our prayer money and we punch the button and then we kick the machine when the right thing doesn't come out. And we shake it and call the hotline. And then the third one is most appropriate this month, or the month coming up, is Santa Claus in the sky. God is there to see if you're on the nice list and then give you the things you want. As long as you're not on the naughty list. And so then week after week, you come to church and you make sure you're not on the naughty list. And then you're curious when you pray for things and ask for things why God, who knows you're on his nice list, doesn't give you the things you want. And then you start to think, maybe I'm not on the nice list. What did I do wrong? And then you end up with a guilt complex. And churches don't do a lot to help with that most of the time. I think for many years, I think all 3 of these are examples of something that for many years churches with good teaching ministries have taught against. We often call it the health, wealth, and prosperity gospel. And for many years, and really for centuries, just not in that language, but for many, many, many years, people have taught against it, knowing that it's not true, it's not biblical, that God is there to just give you health and wealth and prosperity. God just wants you to have all the things you've ever wanted. We know that's not true, and this church certainly doesn't teach health, wealth, and prosperity. We teach realistic life and a God who's with us in the good and the bad. But it's hard to accept that. And so we cling to a verse out of context like Philippians 4:13 because it gives us solace. It makes us feel better about our lot in life. It gives us hope that we can make things better if we just pray enough and do enough good deeds. Then maybe we'll get what we should have coming to us. Never mind that what we should have coming to us may not be what we want. But if we're right about ourselves and we're right about our situation, which we're not, but if we were, and we knew what we really needed, why don't we get what we want? Where is God when I put in my prayer money and I'm a good little boy? And again, all of this may seem totally unrelated to Thanksgiving, and yet the context of Philippians 4 is Thanksgiving. In fact, Philippians is a thank you letter. It's hard to want more and be grateful at the same time. I don't think Paul, in a letter of gratitude, was telling people to just keep trying to get more. He certainly wasn't on the path to try to get more. So I don't know why we read the verse that way. It is incredibly out of context. Philippians is an odd letter. Scholars agree and have agreed for generations now that it's a weird letter. It almost feels like a composite of smaller letters squeezed together in one that we call Philippians. But it's very likely it was a few different little letters put together. It doesn't matter, even if it's one letter, which it could be. It doesn't matter. We believe Paul wrote this letter or these few letters back and forth with the Philippian church, and he was dealing with gratitude, and gratitude is a weird thing. Thanksgiving reminds us of that. How many of you at your family dinner table on Thanksgiving have to go around and every person has to say something they're thankful for? Anybody else do that tradition? No? Well, now you have a new tradition you could try. When you get everybody there before anyone's allowed to touch the food, they get their plates, they line up, they stand around in the room wherever, normally you can't all fit at one table. So you stand in one room together, and we literally go person to person, and we say something we're thankful for. You have those family members that are go-getters, and they name 46 things. You're like, okay. We get it. You're grateful. And then you have some of the people that are like, I don't know what they said, whatever they said, ditto. And it's just thankful for all the same stuff, family and friends being able to be here today. And, half of the people in the room say the same thing. I'm thankful that we're all here today. And that's good. You can be thankful for that. But I'm one of those people that feels awkward, kind of like meet and greet at church, if I'm being honest. That's why I like being the preacher. I can just zoom out. And you guys are like shaking hands, and I'm in the hallway working on my sermon. I just feel awkward. I don't know how to talk to people for 3 seconds apiece. Like, hey, good morning, how are you? Great. Good morning, how are you? Great. So it's just, I don't know why I went to that. It's that same, because it's the same sensation in my heart. I feel that same almost angst. Like, I don't know what to do in this moment, and I feel uncomfortable. That's how I feel, which maybe that's really telling psychologically about me, but that is how I feel at Family Thanksgiving every year. When I know before I get to eat this delicious food, I have to talk. And what am I going to say? They already have to ask me to pray because I'm the pastor in the family. But I'm not mad about that. It's just what it is. My prayers are not any more effective, and probably less effective because I'm the hypocrite in the room. But now this is cathartic. Thank you so much. The holidays are tough, man. I don't know what to say, and I always go last. Almost always, I'm one of the last people. So all the good stuff's taken. They've all said they're thankful for family and friends and health and life and all the blessings we have. And of course, for Jesus Christ, our Savior, and all these. And again, that's a good one. They're all good ones. But then what am I supposed to say except ditto? It's just a weird thing. And then you almost feel expectant. Like you want to say you're thankful for things, but you don't want people to think you want more or that you expect more. You certainly don't want to seem ungrateful. You don't want to overdo it and seem false or polished. It's just weird. It's a weird thing. And writing thank you notes has been one of the most troublesome things in my life. That's why I barely do it. And there are people in this church who have been deeply offended by that. And I truly am sorry to those people that I don't write more thank you notes. I try to always vocalize my gratitude, but I'm not great at writing notes, and I don't enjoy it, and I feel so awkward. I don't know what to write. I rewrite it 5 times, and then I still don't like it when I put it in the envelope. It's too much. I don't know what it is, except that something about gratitude is awkward. And I've thought that for a long time, but I wondered this week if other people feel that. Maybe I'm truly just crazy. I am crazy, but maybe that's not why. Maybe that's one of the things that other people feel too. I often find when I open up and talk about things in a sermon, all kinds of people come to me and say, I feel the same thing. I didn't know other people thought that or felt that. I don't know if that's going to happen today or not. Don't feel compelled to come up to me and say, I deal with that too. You don't need to tell me that. It's fine. I don't really want to know, because then I'm going to excuse myself even more and say, see, it's just everybody's got this problem. It's hard. It's hard. And part of it is that I do want more. It's hard for me to be truly grateful. And this is where God dug in deep with my conscience this week. It's hard for me. I don't even want to say this out loud because I sound like such a jerk. But it is hard for me to be grateful for all that I have, because some part of me still wants more. Like deep down in there where I don't want you to ever see, I'm hungry. I want more than all the good things I already have. And I can't truly be grateful when that part of me is still so desperate for more. I think that's why it's hard for me to be grateful, because I don't recognize that I have enough. So I guess it is false, or it is a little polished. And I'm a millennial. If there's anything I hate more than inauthenticity, it would be being disingenuine, which is really the same thing. That's just like the nature of millennials, right? That we want genuineness, we want authenticity. I'm in my 30s. I don't want fake. And so saying thank you when there's part of me that isn't totally grateful feels fake. Now I've gone too far. Okay. I hope you haven't lost all your respect for me. Philippians is a thank you letter, but it's weird. Paul struggles like I do with saying thank you, and it even feels awkward in the Greek when you read it. In the original manuscripts that we have, the oldest, we don't have any original autographs, but the oldest manuscripts we have of Philippians, they all feel awkward, wooden, stiff. He uses words that are unexpected, phrases that almost contradict each other. It's a difficult thing sometimes to be grateful. That's what I'm realizing this week. So I wanted to know, do you have much to be thankful for this year? Or maybe you're sitting here today struggling to find gratitude, trying to make a list, but you have this other list of things that aren't as they should be, and it seems to counterbalance all the good stuff. I don't know where each of you are, but you're sitting here right now, so I'm going to take advantage of you as a captive audience, and we're going to talk about gratitude. No matter your circumstance, Paul, in Philippians 4 in particular, Paul would have us understand God is enough. No matter what, God is enough. Even though, whether or not, God is enough. Those are phrases that the most spiritually mature people in my life have been able to say. Whether or not, so on and so forth. Or even though, so on and so forth. God is enough. I'm not always there. There are times I'm not able to genuinely say, even if, or no matter what, God is enough. Because to be able to say that is to be biblically content. I'm getting there, I think, but I'm just not always there. And I'm guessing some of you aren't there either. I think this is why at funerals, I read Ecclesiastes 3 with every obituary. Every single funeral I've ever performed, I use Ecclesiastes 3 for the obituary. Not just because it makes it feel more personal, but it reminds me that there is truly a time and a season for everything. So that I don't, and so that the other people who are grieving in the room don't just feel devastated by the loss and say, what are we going to do now? Instead, we put it in the narrative God has built that says there is a time to be born and there's a time to die. That's not a good time, but it is a time, and it's an important one. And it makes the birth that much more important and beautiful. And there's a time to mourn, but there is a time to laugh and to rejoice and to love. And so we juxtapose the good and the bad, and we keep the narrative in the big picture to say, yeah, things aren't always great, but I can appreciate what is good. I can look at the big picture somehow and reflect on that, and it makes sense from far away. Because in the moment when I'm up close, it's just blurry. It doesn't look right. It doesn't make sense. I think this is all part of growing in faith. I think that's why I've been doing it lately. Maybe some of you have already grown much, much, much further than I have, and you could give me advice. I'm learning to quit asking for things and to appreciate what I already have. Which sounds obvious. I would have understood that concept when I was in 4th grade, right, as a kid. I understand, be grateful for what you have, don't keep asking for more. It's not the concept I couldn't wrap my mind around. It's the truth of it that I couldn't get in my heart. And that may not make any sense to any of you, but it makes sense to me. I could know something without really believing it. In fact, I've often dealt with that. I know so many things. I've studied like crazy, but I don't believe them the way I should. I don't live them the way I should. And that's why I feel like the biggest hypocrite, because I know what I'm supposed to do and I don't do it. And Paul says, so who's going to save this wretched man from himself? I feel that. For the Christian, I think growing into this space is called gratitude. Learning to be thankful for what is there in any given moment, whether or not, even though, no matter what. That's gratitude. In Koine Greek, in the original that Paul wrote, he used the word charis. Charis is where we get the word Eucharist, the word charisma, the word charismatic. The word literally means gift. We translate it as grace in English. We translate it as thankfulness or gratitude. We translate it as thanks. So we give thanks. We receive grace. We offer thanksgiving. All of those are the same Greek word, charis. It's just interesting to me. It's the giving and the receiving. And there's no separate word for each. When you give someone a gift in Koine Greek, it's the word charis. When you receive it, it's the word charis. When you're grateful for it, it's the word charis. All of it's rooted in that same word. We even say people who are gifted are charismatic or they have charisma because we know the original word means to gift or be gifted. Receiving gifts can be really awkward. Have you ever done love languages? Raise your hand if you know what love languages are. There's generally 5 that people talk about. It's a great concept. We use it a lot in marital counseling. How do you communicate your love, and how do you receive that from others? Mine, the lowest one on my list, and it's like way below all the other ones, is gift giving. So that's part of my problem, is I just don't appreciate gifts and don't care about giving them. I think it's very kind when people give me gifts. I appreciate the gesture. I have so much, I really don't need more. I would rather have quality time or just have a conversation, because for me, quality time and physical touch are like my top 2. I love to give hugs and handshakes and high fives, and I love to just be with people, to be surrounded by people. I'm an extrovert, I guess. That's what I like. But I have family who are big-time gift givers, especially Kylie's side of the family, and they don't only receive joy by giving gifts, but I think they love to receive gifts. And I feel like I need to do better giving good gifts for those people so that I can communicate my love for them. But it's awkward if you're not a gift person. And when you receive a gift, it can be even more awkward because you don't know how to respond. Just think about the way Paul writes. I just realized I didn't read you more of Philippians 4, but we probably should do that so you get the context. Let's look at Philippians 4, and we're going to read from verse 10 and following. And I don't know if I even put this on the screen this week. I'm sorry about that. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly that now at length, or finally, you've revived your concern for me. You were indeed concerned for me, but you had no opportunity. Not that I'm speaking of being in need. I've learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. So there's that key verse. And then he says, yet it was kind of you to share my trouble. And he goes on to talk about struggles that he's faced. So in context, Paul is saying, basically, thank you, but I didn't really need it, but it was very generous, but I didn't expect it, but I do appreciate it, and I'm not really sure how to repay you. And you sense the awkwardness. It's just this flip-flopping, wishy-washy. It's really great, but I don't want you to think, it's cringy almost. It's cringe, as I was corrected at one time. I'll never forget that. I felt so old. It's awkward. To make it more difficult, we add the concept of contentment, this idea that's maybe bigger than gratitude. Maybe it's the key to gratitude, is contentment. Paul chooses a word from the Stoics that actually means apathetic. I've learned to be content no matter what. But he doesn't say content. He says to have no feeling. I've learned not to care no matter what. And that's tough, because even that makes it kind of tricky. What does he mean, apathy? I've learned to not feel no matter what. Some people, I don't know that Paul is in this position, but some people do lose feeling. They lose touch. It's not just that they've become really content, but they just stop caring. They've lost feeling. It is possible to make the heart a desert and call that peace. It's possible. I've known people to do it. I think of the rich young ruler who comes to Jesus. He says, good teacher, what must I do to be saved? I've done all the things, and it's just not clicking. I wonder why he came to Jesus. I often imagine the people in the Bible and their bigger stories. And I picture him walking down the street in his beautiful robes with wads of money, denarii falling out of his pockets, right? Those are the day's wages, big coins. Anyway, I picture him walking down the street and little kids tugging at his sleeve saying, "Sir, please help us, we're hungry, help us." They had a lot of very poor people all over the streets. And he's walking home, he says, "Get off of me, you're getting me dirty, leave me alone," just to go home and see his wife scraping full plates into the trash, complaining, "Our kids don't ever want to eat anything I cook." And just day after day of that, and how it must have eaten away at his soul. Until finally he goes to Jesus and he says, "What am I supposed to do to feel right? I have everything, and I feel like I don't have it." And Jesus says, "You have been a good boy, but that's not how it works. Give what you have to the poor, then I promise you'll find what you're looking for." And we never know what happens. He walks away sad. It doesn't say he refuses, it just says he walks away sad, because sometimes that's all you do in that moment is walk away sad, and then you think, and I hope and pray that he changed, that he became generous, and therefore developed gratitude and contentment. I don't know. Maybe we're not supposed to know, because then it's left open for you, because maybe you're him. There are certainly times I think I'm him. Or like Macbeth, if you any Shakespeare fans, I sometimes tell you, I took, by choice, I took an elective every Tuesday night for 4 hours. I took a Shakespeare class while I was in college. I don't know why I did that, but I loved it. It was really interesting. And I'll never forget the ending to Macbeth. He wades through a pool of blood, his own relative's blood, to get to the throne of Scotland. And when he finally gets there, what do we see? But this old, empty, tired man twirling a crown in his fingers, sitting on the side of a bed. It's nothing. He gets all that he wanted, and it's empty. It's profound, because that's life. I want more and more and more, and when I finally have it, I need more still. It's never enough. How can we be grateful when there's never enough? And so we grow apathetic. We just stop feeling. I don't think that's Paul, the magnificence of life's promise lost in the poverty of its achievement. I don't think that's Paul. But gifts can sometimes be ugly. So I wondered if maybe it felt like a bribe. He didn't want to receive it because he wasn't sure. Are they wanting me to curry favor for them as the Philippian church and make them my favorites? Because I won't receive money from the Corinthian church just in case they accuse me of wanting their money. But the Philippians, they send me money when I had to go to Macedonia. They've helped me. But now I wonder if there are strings attached. Sometimes when you give gifts, there are strings attached. Anybody ever have a gift given that you thought there were strings attached to it? I'm sure you have. Gifts can be weird that way. Like when you bribe someone or pay them off, or God forbid, a man who cheats on his wife and then in his guilt buys her flowers and a new car and sends her to an appointment for her nails and a massage and just tries to buy her back. And it's almost like she would say, I could have forgiven the infidelity, but that he thought he could buy me off hurts even worse. That he thinks it's about money. But gifts do that sometimes. They ruin relationships. They turn people into things to be purchased. I don't know that that's what the Philippians do to Paul. But gifts can have strings attached. They can at times, and maybe this is Paul's biggest struggle, they wound our pride. And Paul had issues with his pride and his ego. He talked about that. He struggled like I do. Maybe that's what's happening. I know when I was a kid, they came out with the free lunch program that was like, that computers were starting to become a thing. And, I'm only in my 30s, so computers were really becoming big when I was in elementary school. And I remember that the kids who got free lunch were able to just give the code, and the computer had it written somewhere in the code that their lunch was free, so they didn't have to get in a separate line. But growing up, I realized years before, it couldn't have worked like that. Kids would have had to say, I have free lunch, or they would have had to get in a separate line for free lunch, or maybe they had to go into the cafeteria before everybody else. I don't know, but I never thought of that until I was older, what it must have been like back then for those kids who were lower income families who got free lunch. That's tough, isn't it? For the pride of a person, it wounds us to think that we're less than somebody else, that we depend on a handout, that we need some kind of gift. When Ada was born, Kylie and I both work for a church. So, we don't I'm well taken care of, especially now, but back then I was still a youth minister here, and helped with the worship, and the church took care of us, but tax paperwork-wise, it looked like we were low income, and they offered us WIC. Is it women, infants, children, something like that, whatever WIC stands for. But it was like free baby formula and free diapers and food cards, EBT cards, and stuff like that. And those are such blessings to the people who are in need. But in that moment, I hate to admit this, but I felt offended because I thought, we have money in savings. We pay our bills every month. We're not struggling. We're okay. Just because our tax paperwork makes it look like, we're low income. And instead of just saying, thank you, but that won't be necessary, it was almost like I reacted. It was like, I don't need that. We're good. There's like something in me my pride was wounded, as if I weren't man enough to care for my new baby, that I needed the government to do it for me. God forbid I have the humility to accept support. I mean, we really didn't need it in that moment, and we wanted others to have access to it, but that's not all it was. Deep down, it was me reacting out of pride, saying, I don't need that. I'll get another job if I have to. I'll figure this out. That wasn't necessary. Like I said, this church has always taken good care of us. But my pride couldn't stand for that. I hesitated sharing that story, but I thought maybe it would resonate with somebody. Because there is something in us that doesn't want to receive gifts, that thinks a gift is beneath me. I don't need someone's gift. I don't know what that is, but it's very ugly, and I have it. Maybe that's Paul. Maybe he feels hurt. When you do something nice for someone who's really in need, I would encourage you to lay it gently upon their pride. Because for some people, that's all they have left. Don't wound their pride. And sometimes we expect a gift and we don't receive one. Maybe you've been hurt by not receiving a gift. I talked a lot about how awkward gifts can be, but what about not getting a gift when you thought you should have? Paul says that. He says that in this letter. Finally, you revived your concern for me. Or at long last, you sent me some help. And it's like he wanted to backpedal as soon as he said it. Not that you had opportunity. I know you couldn't help me sooner, but it's like the truth came out at the beginning. Finally, you send me some support. Where does that come from? Paul is a human being. He's not God. He's just like you. And he says, finally, you cared enough to help me. But I know you couldn't really help me before. But it was good that you helped me when I needed it. But I don't need it. God has my back. I'm okay. But again, thank you. Let's move on. I feel all of that because I know what it's like to not receive a gift when you thought you should, when other people did. When one kid receives something the other kids don't. When one employee receives gratitude from the boss and the others don't. And there's this unfair, unjust thing that happens when we give gifts. It begins to feel like favoritism or partiality or somehow demeaning to those who don't receive. It was Roman custom, and this is kind of crazy, but it was Roman custom at the time not to be friends with people wealthier than you. Now, some part of that is probably to develop social class and strata to keep people where they're supposed to be, the poor, the wealthy with the wealthy. But there was also some social truth behind it. It was expected that you be able to reciprocate gifts with your friends. So if you were friends with someone much wealthier than you and they donated something to you as a gift, how would you ever repay them from your poverty? And so it was recommended by the great minds in ancient Greece and ancient Rome that you not become friends with people that were in a different social class. Think about that. Because it was expected that you be able to return the favor. Paul says, finally, you cared about me. I don't think he's ticked off. It starts to feel that way, but that's why he backpedals. No, not that you had opportunity. I know you would have done something sooner. He's careful to say, I'm not mad at you. I'm not upset. So I don't think it's that either. In fact, he clarifies it's not what it is. I wonder, though, how you interpret people's silence when they don't give you what you think you deserve, when they haven't reached out, when they haven't gifted you the way that they should have. How do you interpret that? Paul gives the benefit of the doubt. He says, I know you must not have had opportunity. You wouldn't have purposefully abandoned me or left me in the lurch. I don't always react that way. Sometimes I assume guilt. I think, where were you? Why didn't you do something? Why weren't you there? Why didn't you care more? Contentment requires that we refuse to resent. Paul will not resent the Philippians, especially now that they've shown up. But he makes it clear he hadn't resented them before. He didn't let his heart grow bitter. Even when people seem to overlook our needs, we cannot resent. So, Paul has not been scorned by gift giving, it would appear. That's not it. What is it then? I think the answer is freedom. Paul is free. Free from the love of money, free from the love of stuff, free from circumstantial happiness. Paul has grown into freedom in Christ. And what I mean by that is not hyper-spiritualism, where he thinks you just need to be poor and suffer. That's not healthy. It's not hyper-moralism either. He doesn't say all money is evil and you shouldn't ever want more stuff. Stuff is rotten. Stuff is gross. Stuff is the devil. The love of money is at the root of evil. But the Bible doesn't even say that money is evil. Money is a necessary part of life. Jesus says, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, right? It's money. It's stuff. It's part of a bartering system. Fine. Just don't let it control you. Paul isn't a hyper-moralist. He has freedom. He says, yeah, it can be good. It can be bad. Whatever. I have a lot. I don't have a lot. That's not the point. So what is it? It's freedom. It's biblical freedom. It is contentment. And he calls it a mystery. This is my favorite word in the whole passage, because he refers to grace as a mystery. He's learned the secret that God offers that removes the greed, the envy, the resentment, the bitterness, maybe not the awkwardness, but all the other stuff. Paul says he could be hungry, helpless, hurting, held up, but he's content. It doesn't matter. He doesn't need more, but he doesn't need less. He's just content. Fred Craddock is one of my very favorite preachers. He's just an excellent storyteller. I want to share with you a quote from one of his sermons. He says, some of the really pitiful things you run into in this world are scenes where people have not yet learned, where people have not gotten the secret just yet, and you see them in stores. I'd like to buy some time. We don't have any time. We could sell you a clock. Can I buy a friend here? No, we don't have any friends. We could sell you a companion for a night. I'd like to buy a drop of rain. No, we can't sell you any rain. We could pipe some water into your house. Can I buy some salvation here? No, we got some really nice Bibles. I'll sell you a Bible. You see a man in a hospital corridor, fistful of $20 bills, going up and down, stopping every orderly, every nurse. My wife, she's in room 306, in there under that oxygen tent. I can't lose her now. We've been married 33 years. Here's a little something extra. If you just check on her more often, give her a little more support, make sure she's going to be okay. Look, sir, we'll take care of your wife. Put your money away. Well, it's just that, but he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the fundamental fabric of human relationships is totally unrelated to money. How sad it is to think that giving will do it, or that not giving could ever destroy it. The mother who puts a ribbon in her little girl's hair doesn't put it there to make her pretty. She puts it there because she is pretty. When you give a gift to somebody, it's not in order to, it's because of. Paul has learned that. And you know, he's learned to be absolutely free from the need to be poor. He says, I know how to have a lot, I know how to have nothing, I can take it either way. He doesn't have to be either way. He doesn't have to be wealthy, but he doesn't have to be poor. He's just content. If we hope to live in the grace of God, then like Paul, we have to learn the secret of contentment so that we can practice gratitude, so that we can really, without reservation and without being false, give thanks. So we really can give thanks. So I want to give you some scriptural ideas about it. I'll just read some verses and then we'll be done. First one, Psalm 147:7. One way we show our gratitude is by singing praise. Singing praise. Sing to the Lord with thanksgiving. Make melody to our God on the lyre. Psalm 95:2. Let us come into his presence with thanksgiving. Let us make a joyful noise to him with songs of praise. Or Colossians 3:16 that my friend Aaron read to you during worship. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing psalms and hymns and spiritual songs with thankfulness in your hearts to God. So we sing praise. We study God's word. We lock it away. We worship God. We adore God. That's the first primary step to developing gratitude. If you want to learn the secret of contentment, then you have to worship God in order to receive the grace of God. That's the first step. The second one is to share, to be a blessing. And this is the one we work on with our kids every day. I literally pray every day on the way to school, Lord, help us to be a blessing to others. It's a simple prayer, but it is profoundly important that my kids understand their job in this world is to pour out blessing into other people's lives in ways that I never will, that they could be better than me. Matthew 5:16, Jesus said, "In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." So the more we do good for others, the more God is praised, the more gratitude is developed all around. And then we see the origin of this in Genesis 12:2. This is the Abrahamic covenant. This is the beginning of our faith journey as the people of God. When God called Avram, who was father but had no children, and he says, "I'll make you Avraham, father of many nations." And he says to him, "This I will do to bless you so that you become a blessing." That's the point. God calls and blesses you so that you may bless others. And we just seem to forget that. I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. That is the covenant that has been cut with God's people. God blesses you so that you bless others. Proverbs 11:25, "Whoever brings blessing will be enriched. The one who waters will himself be watered," or herself. Luke 12:33, Jesus says, "Sell your possessions. Give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that don't grow old, with treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth can destroy." Romans 12:13, "Contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to show hospitality." There were tons of other verses. Literally, I think I had 24 verses I deleted because there were just too many. I had a list of things about being a blessing to other people. You Google it, okay? I don't have to do that for you. Go home and Google it. Be a blessing in the Bible, and just look at the litany of verses, just page upon page of God's word saying, do this, go bless people. This is how you will be blessed to be a blessing, and then you will be blessed, and then you can be more of a blessing, and then you'll be more blessed, and then you'll be more of a blessing. That's not health, wealth, prosperity. That's biblical contentment and joy. That's the key. That's gratitude. It is quite literally grace. That's the word charis. Would you stand with me as we wrap this up? There's a nun who's around my age. She's only in her 30s, but she's a very wise sage. She's part of a monastic order, or rather is it still called a monastic order if it's a nun? I'm not even sure. But anyway, she's part of a group of nuns who practice contemplative prayer and generosity. They basically just go around and take care of poor people every day. And she's this phenomenal example. And the other day I was listening to her like a daily devotion. She does an audio devotion. And she said something, and I wrote it down, and I want to read it to you. When you recognize that everything in your life is a gift, you begin to recognize that your life itself is a gift. And then the fruit of gratitude is joy. When you recognize everything in your life is a gift, then you recognize your life itself is a gift. And the implication of what she goes on to say is then you give your life away to others and you receive joy. But the process of recognizing the gift and giving it away is gratitude. It is grace. It's what God does for you. You think about that. That's the gospel. That God saw something in you of great value, so he offered himself, right? He becomes incarnate. He becomes a human. God puts on human flesh and dies, offers God's own life to redeem you. That's at the very heart of the good news of Jesus. And then Jesus says, now you go and do likewise. That's what carry your cross means. Jesus didn't mean now you go suffer because suffering's fun. He meant now you go spend yourself for others. You be the blessing the way that I have blessed you through sacrifice. that's rooted in gratitude, not a need to hurt, but the desire to help. This is sort of deep stuff, I get that, but it's a holiday season, and I'm tired of shallow Thanksgiving and Christmas junk. Let's go deeper. Let's be honest and real about what God is calling us to, because Thanksgiving isn't about circling the room and saying, I'm glad we're all here today. It's looking at those people and knowing I would give myself out of love for them. That's why we like the people that are in that room on Thanksgiving, because we know those are the people who would die for me. At least we hope. I could gather in any room and eat with anybody and I'd have some good food, right? That'd be nice. But when you gather with your closest friends and family, the whole point is the love between you. That's why no one knows what to say. It's awkward because it's bigger than that. I can't really say what I'm thankful for because I don't know how to voice it, but I am thankful. That's how I feel in this room with you. The more you praise, the more you share, the more joy you develop. Then you want to praise more and you want to share more, and eventually you become like Christ. This is the mystery of grace. It's no accident that Thanksgiving comes just before Christmas. The church calendar is set up purposefully. We must develop gratitude and contentment in order to experience the gift-giving season. Even the Puritans, with all their anger and, I would argue, some bad theology, even they understood that you must be grateful before you can give. I still believe that. If you want this holiday season to be all that it can be for you and your family, then I invite you to learn the secret, which the Apostle Paul speaks to the ancient church. The grace of God.